There comes a time in life when even the strongest among us feel broken, when the energy that once carried us forward disappears, when our confidence feels like dust in the wind, slipping through our fingers no matter how tightly we try to hold on. It can come after failure, after betrayal, after too many disappointments piled one upon the other, until your heart feels heavier than your body can carry. And in those moments, you might wonder, will I ever feel strong again? But here is a truth the Stoics understood well. Strength is not lost, it is buried. It waits beneath the surface of your fear, your doubt, and your pain. And if you are willing to look inward, to learn, and to practice, you can uncover it again. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you already are. So today we will walk through Stoic principles that will help you rebuild your inner strength and awaken an unshakable confidence. The kind that doesn't come from applause, money, or power, but from the way you meet life itself. These are not abstract ideas. They are living practices. And if you embrace them, they will change not only how you see yourself, but how you stand in the world. Principle 1, expect the storms. Marcus Aurelius began many of his mornings with a reminder. He wrote, "Today I shall meet people who are selfish, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unkind. But none of them can harm me because I will not let them." Why would an emperor, a man with armies, wealth, and absolute authority, begin his day like this? Because he understood that disappointment comes when we expect life to be smooth, when we expect people to always treat us kindly, when we expect the world to bend to our desires. Strength begins with realism, not cynicism, not bitterness, but realism. When you expect storms, you don't panic when the sky darkens. You carry an umbrella. When you expect resistance, you don't collapse at the first sign of struggle. You lean in, knowing the struggle is part of the path. Anxiety whispers, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic answers, "Why should it not? This is life, and I was made to endure it." Confidence is not built by imagining a perfect future. It is built by knowing that no matter what future comes, you are ready. So tomorrow morning, don't just hope for an easy day. Tell yourself, today will be difficult. People will test me. Obstacles will rise, but I will remain calm. I will remain steady, and I will remain free. Principle 2, reframe the story. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about that. Most of the pain you feel in life is not from what happens, but from the story you tell yourself about what happens. You miss an opportunity, and your mind says, "This means I'm a failure." Someone rejects you, and your mind says, "I will never be loved." You make a mistake, and your mind says, "I'm not good enough." But notice something. These are not facts. They are interpretations. The same event could mean something entirely different if you chose another perspective. The Stoics understood this. That's why Epictetus taught, "Men are disturbed not by things but by the view they take of them." Imagine this. A ship is caught in a storm. One passenger cries out, "We're doomed. The sea will destroy us." Another sits quietly saying, "This is the nature of the ocean. The storm will pass. I will endure same storm." Different story, different outcome. Your inner strength grows when you take control of the narrative inside your mind. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it useful? Or is it simply fear pretending to be truth? Every time you edit your inner story, you reclaim power from anxiety. And every time you remind yourself, this pain is temporary. This failure is feedback. This rejection is redirection. You build confidence not on illusions, but on reality. Principle 3, step into discomfort. Modern life teaches us to avoid pain, avoid failure, avoid confrontation, avoid anything that threatens our comfort. But the Stoics warned, the more you avoid, the weaker you become. Marcus Aurelius practiced voluntary discomfort. He would sleep on the floor instead of his luxurious bed, eat plain food instead of feasts, and remind himself that he could survive without luxury. Why? Because he knew that confidence does not come from comfort. It comes from proving to yourself that you can endure discomfort and remain whole. Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something uncomfortable on purpose? Not because life forced you, but because you chose to. Every time you do, you train your mind. Every time you face what scares you, you shrink fear's power over you. Every time you lean into discomfort, you build resilience. Think of it like a muscle. If you never lift anything heavy, your strength stays small. But if you lift a little more each day, your power grows. So if failure terrifies you, practice failing at something small. If solitude scares you, spend an evening alone without distractions. If speaking up feels unbearable, start with a single sentence in a safe space. The more you practice discomfort, the less you fear it. And the less you fear, the more confident you become. Principle 4, anchor yourself with rituals. A chaotic mind cannot feel strong. An unstructured life cannot feel confident. That's why the Stoics created daily practices, rituals that grounded them in clarity no matter what storms arrived. Marcus Aurelius journaled each morning, reminding himself of his values and reflecting on how he wanted to live. Seneca practiced evening reflection, reviewing his day not with shame, but with curiosity. Where did I fall short? Where did I succeed? How can I improve tomorrow? Confidence doesn't come from hype or empty affirmations. It comes from proving to yourself, day after day, that you are reliable, that you show up, that you are committed to growth. What rituals could anchor you? It might be journaling. It might be meditation. It might be reading a page of philosophy each morning or setting intentions before you check your phone. It might be ending your day by writing down 3 things you did well, no matter how small. These rituals are not trivial. They are like training the soil of your mind. Each habit is a seed, and in time, they grow into confidence. Ask yourself, if I truly believed my inner strength mattered, what daily ritual would I commit to? Then begin, not tomorrow, but today. Principle 5, control what you can, release what you can't. At the heart of Stoicism is a radical but liberating idea. You are responsible for effort, not outcome. Think about how much of your anxiety comes from trying to control things you never truly could. The opinions of others, the twists of fate, the outcomes of risks, the timing of opportunities. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Confidence is born the moment you stop demanding control over everything, and instead focus on what is truly yours, your choices, your actions, your mindset. Imagine standing in front of 2 doors. Behind one door, the things you can control, your words, your discipline, your effort. Behind the other, the things you cannot control, outcomes, reactions, chance. Every time you open the wrong door, you waste energy. But every time you open the right one, you gain peace. So the next time anxiety rises, ask yourself, which door am I standing at? And choose wisely. Because when you release what was never yours, you create space to master what always was. Principle 6, remember death, embrace life. The Stoics had a practice that many find uncomfortable. Memento mori, remember you will die. Why would anyone meditate on death? Isn't that depressing? Not to them, because to remember death is to awaken life. Think of how procrastination steals your strength, how easy it is to delay, to tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, I'll change next year, I'll live when I'm ready. But memento mori whispers, tomorrow is not promised. This truth doesn't crush you, it frees you, because if life is short, then every day matters. If time is limited, then scrolling endlessly, living for approval, waiting for permission, these are the real tragedies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. When you remember death, you stop living on autopilot. You choose, you prioritize, you act. And that urgency creates strength. Confidence doesn't come from believing you'll live forever. It comes from knowing you won't, and daring to live fully anyway. Principle 7. Strength is found in service. Modern culture says confidence comes from self-promotion, from standing above others. But the Stoics taught the opposite. Real strength is found in service. Marcus Aurelius, though an emperor, reminded himself daily, you are a citizen of the world. You were born to work with others. When you live only for yourself, Every failure feels fatal, every rejection feels crushing, every obstacle feels unbearable. But when you see your life as part of something larger, when you dedicate your strength to helping, uplifting, or serving others, suddenly your pain shrinks. Service gives meaning to suffering. It gives direction to discipline. It gives courage to fear. Confidence built on ego is fragile. Confidence built on service is unshakable. Ask yourself, who benefits when I rise? Who gains when I grow stronger? And let that answer carry you when your own motivation falters. Principle 8. Create a sanctuary within. There is a chaos outside of you that will never be fully tamed. Society, deadlines, people's moods, unexpected events. But the greater tragedy is when that chaos enters your soul and takes permanent residence. Seneca warned us that it is not the external storm that destroys a person, but the storm within. To truly overcome overthinking, you must build what the Stoics called an inner citadel, a place inside you that cannot be invaded by noise, by criticism, or by the unpredictability of fate. This sanctuary is not made of walls or defenses. It is built with clarity, self-discipline, and truth. Ask yourself, what practices anchor me daily? Meditation, prayer, journaling? For Marcus Aurelius, his journal became a shield, reminding him of what truly mattered, giving order to a chaotic empire. For you, it may be 10 minutes of silence before the world wakes up, or writing one page to untangle your thoughts. The point is not what ritual you choose, but that you choose something that strengthens the walls of your inner citadel. Because when you train your mind to find stability within, no outer turbulence can uproot your peace. Principle 9. Harness the power of mortality. The Stoics never feared to look at death. To them, it was not a morbid obsession, but the sharpest tool to cut away illusions. Why do we overthink? Because we assume we have endless tomorrows to solve, to plan, to calculate. But remember, life is not promised. Marcus wrote each morning, "You may not live to see the evening. Act as if this day is a gift." And when you see life through that lens, overthinking seems absurd. Would you waste an entire day worrying about what others might think if you knew it could be your last? Mortality does not make life meaningless. It makes it urgent. It forces you to ask, if not now, when? If not me, who? And in that urgency, clarity is born. The petty concerns fall away. What matters stands tall. To practice this, reflect daily. If today were my last, would I still waste it scrolling? Would I still replay that past argument? Would I still let fear dictate my choices? This truth burns away hesitation, and what remains is courage. Principle 10. Redefine control. At the heart of Stoicism lies a razor-sharp division. What is in your control and what is not? Overthinking is the act of trying to control what was never yours to hold. How others behave, whether outcomes unfold in your favor, or whether tomorrow aligns with your plans. But here is your freedom. You can always control your effort, your perspective, your choices in this very moment. That is where your true power lives. The Stoics trained themselves to release the weight of everything else. Imagine carrying a heavy sack of stones, every regret, every fear of the future, every demand of perfection. That is overthinking. Now imagine dropping the sack and carrying only what you need: your will, your reason, your present action. How much lighter would your journey become? Your liberation comes when you say, "I will give my best effort and let go of the rest." That is not resignation, it is wisdom. Principle 11. Seek the depth, not the noise. Modern life is designed to scatter you. Notifications, headlines, endless entertainment. It all pulls your attention in 1,000 directions. Overthinking thrives in distraction because your mind never sinks deep enough into one thing to find meaning. But the Stoics remind us, depth, not breadth, is where strength is found. Instead of chasing 100 shallow thoughts, choose one principle, one project, one purpose, and go deep. Seneca said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Ask yourself, what is the one thing today that deserves my full presence? It could be finishing a piece of work with care. It could be giving undivided attention to a loved one. or even simply breathing deeply and watching the sun set without reaching for your phone. When you trade noise for depth, the fog of overthinking lifts. Suddenly, life feels less like a maze and more like a path. Principle 12. Practice the discipline of action. Here lies the paradox. We overthink because we hesitate, but we hesitate because we overthink. The only way out of this cycle is through movement, through action. The Stoics were men and women of action. They believed philosophy was useless if it stayed in books and never touched the pulse of daily life. Marcus wrote his reflections not to impress others, but to sharpen his own conduct. Epictetus trained his students not to debate endlessly, but to live differently. Action silences overthinking like nothing else. Once you begin, the mind has no room for endless speculation. Imagine standing at the edge of a cold river. You can stand there all day, calculating the shock, predicting the discomfort, worrying about the current. But the moment you leap in, thought is replaced by experience, and suddenly the fear loses its grip. So make this your practice. When you feel trapped in thought, take one small action, write one sentence, make one call, take one step forward. You do not need to conquer the mountain at once, you only need to begin the climb. Principle 13. Anchor yourself in gratitude. Overthinking is often rooted in dissatisfaction, the belief that something is missing, that you are not enough, that life is incomplete. Gratitude shatters that illusion. When you pause to notice what you already have, the breath in your lungs, the people who care for you, the opportunities before you, the restless search for what if quiets. Seneca wrote that true wealth is not measured by what we possess, but by what we can live without. Gratitude is that wealth. Try this. Each evening, write down 3 things you are grateful for, however small: a warm meal, a kind word, the strength to endure another day. Slowly, you will rewire your mind away from scarcity and into sufficiency. And when your heart rests in sufficiency, overthinking has no soil in which to grow. Principle 14. Live with integrity. Finally, the deepest cure for overthinking is this: live in alignment with your values. Much of our mental turmoil comes from the gap between who we are and who we know we should be. When you lie, when you betray your own standards, when you live for approval rather than truth, you will always overthink because your conscience whispers at night. But when your actions match your principles, the mind finds rest. There is no need to rehearse, to defend, to calculate. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple words, but they hold the key to inner peace. Ask yourself, what do I stand for? What virtues do I want to embody? Honesty, courage, kindness, discipline? Then live them, boldly and consistently. Overthinking cannot survive in a mind that lives with integrity because there is nothing to hide, nothing to fear. You were not born to live in chains of thought. You were born to act, to love, to create, to experience. Overthinking is a thief. It robs you of the only thing you truly possess, this present moment. But you are not powerless. With awareness, with discipline, with the wisdom of those who walk before us, you can train your mind to be calm amidst the storm. You can build your inner citadel. You can let go of what you cannot control. You can choose action, depth, and gratitude. And when you do, you will discover that peace was never out there. It was always within you, waiting to be claimed. If you found value in this, consider sharing it with someone who could benefit. And don't forget, a simple like goes a long way in spreading Stoic wisdom. For more insights on philosophy, personal growth, and the art of clear thinking, subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay strong, stay mindful, and above all, stay stoic. See you in the next video.